Hey Sparkles, welcome to Have a Chat. I'm looking forward to having a conversation today with Maureen. I'm going to let Maureen introduce herself, tell us your name, the organization you work for, and then let me know what you'd like to talk about.
Sure. My name is Maureen Lymburner. I work with a fabulous small nonprofit called Home Again Furniture Bank in St. John's, Newfoundland. And today I'm really hoping to pick your brain, Cathy, about something that I'm really interested in doing. Home Again is in the process of applying for charitable status of our own. Right now, we're under the umbrella of another organization. And so we have just created a board and are recruiting new members. We have some new ones already. We'll be recruiting more. So it's sort of the board is a new thing for us and the members are new. So I feel this is a fabulous time to really work with the board to engage them in fundraising at all different levels. One of the things I'm keen on doing is doing some educational pieces with the board members at meetings. So my thought was it would be really fun to have maybe take even just 5 minutes, like short little sessions at each and every meeting to introduce different concepts from fundraising. But where I'm stuck is kind of fundraising is big. So where to start, recognizing that they're all at very different levels and coming from very different places. So I was hoping to kind of hear your thoughts and learn a bit from you.
Okay, this is exciting. Like being able to sort of start from scratch is a pretty incredible place to be. So I'm going to take a step back before I answer your question. And I just want to ask you some questions about what kind of language are you using about fundraising when you're recruiting new board members? So what are you saying to them about your expectations of them in fundraising?
So I'm not active, well, I'm somewhat engaged in the recruitment process, but not in the interviewing, what have you. All board members are told that it is a board with that they should be engaged in fundraising. So everyone should make it their own contribution according to their means. Everyone should support kind of our signature events or campaigns by actively participating, and then kind of use their networks as they can. And that's about the extent of it. So I think it is built up in a way that they know they should be engaged. But again, I think a lot of people in general hear the word fundraising and would prefer to hide under a table than raise their hands. So I want to introduce the concept as that you're not going to ask them for money. You're asking people to engage in really, really important work and to make a difference in their community and just to kind of get that across to them. But again, if I've only got 5 minutes per meeting, which is what I might ask for, how do we do this in a step-by-step process that is continuous and flowy and works well?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to bring you back to before you get to your board meetings. And all of the stuff that you said about the expectations when they're in fundraising, I would recommend if you're, well, maybe you are already doing it, but to have that in writing so that it's part of the terms of reference for a board member job description, for instance. So I don't know if you have that, but I would strongly recommend that. Okay. And that in fact, they kind of agree to the job description. So they sign something that says, you know, yes, I agree. Just to like, they can, it's not a legal contract. They can say they're not going to do it. But too often what we see happening is that when there is a conversation with a prospective board member, because people would rather poke their eyes out than fundraise, too often I see executive directors or the chair of the nominating committee or whatever kind of bury that one. And with this notion that, oh, we'll get them on the board and then, you know, and then hopefully they'll do this thing that we need. Yeah. It goes back to the question of you did the course, yeah. So the now called Planning with Purpose, we've changed the name from when you did it. there's a whole thing in that course around, do you have a dual mandate in your organization? Are you both a fundraising organization and an organization that delivers on its mission? And so that conversation would be a good one to have as one of those. Well, it's going to be more than 5 minutes, but even just introducing the concept of, in order to deliver on our mission, we necessarily have to be a fundraising organization. And then, so what does that mean to be a fundraising organization? And then you can have some subsequent sessions about what does it mean to be a board member who is actively involved in fundraising. Mm-hmm. So I think that notion of a dual mandate would be an interesting place to
a good starter.
Good starter, yeah. Because I'll tell you that, lots of people, when I raise that, they push back. They're like, no, we're not a fundraising organization. I'm like, well, you are actually. And, and being able to support that with some statistics. So this is what our total budget is, and this is how much of our total budget comes from us actively engaging in philanthropy. Mm-hmm. That is a strong demonstration of whether you are or not a fundraising organization. And I think that would work for you, because I actually think you get a fair chunk of your revenue from philanthropy, right?
And certainly one of our goals is to move more towards fundraising versus reliance on grants, which are so iffy, right? We want to become more sustainable in that way by building up our donors. And so, I mean, if that's a goal as an organization, we really do need everyone on board.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one topic that you can have. I will just say before I forget that at the board meeting, I think you also want to make sure that you have what I and many others call mission moments. So you want to make sure you're keeping them connected to the work that you're doing.
Yes, we've started, we recently kind of revamped our whole meeting structure and kind of flipped it upside down. So we introduced mission moments, and that's how we start with a story, bringing people back. And then we're leaving review of minutes and financial stuff till the very end, and kind of getting into the heart of whatever we're discussing at that meeting at the beginning, and leaving those other kind of less exciting pieces till the end of the meeting. So, and I think that's working well so far.
Okay, nice. So I would also suggest that if you have a cycle where there are periodic day-long strategic planning sessions or day-long retreats, that you make sure you carve out, at least an hour for fundraising in any time that when you come together for a longer period of time, because 5 minutes per meeting is going to sort of keep it top of mind. But you need to, at some point, you're going to need to dig in.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a client right now. Now we're working with them over kind of a year, but part of our work with them is 5 board sessions. So the board is committed to 5 hour-long, hour to 90-minute sessions over the course of the year around fundraising. So they've really made a commitment that, they need to raise their game and that they need to understand as a board what that means for them.
Excellent. And so Cathy, would you recommend, if I did have an opportunity for this hour-long session or multiple longer sessions, would you recommend it come from me as staff person, or get an outside someone, a colleague or from the AFP or something, to come in to speak with all of us as a group?
This used to annoy the whatever out of me when I was in your role. I could say whatever I wanted to the board, and I can think of occasions where the board said to me, well, why don't you bring in, so-and-so, and in this case it happened to be a man, and so he came in. He was older, he had gray hair, he had a lot of experience. He said virtually all the same things that I had been saying, and it was received so much differently. Mm-hmm. And now I am that person, right, who goes into organizations and says those things, and I may be saying very similar things to what the staff person is saying. And so I have a different perspective on it now. It's less about, them ignoring me, and it's more about somebody from the outside. Just, you can't, what's that saying? You cannot be a prophet in your own land. And so my advice to you is to bring in somebody who can speak to them. Make sure that they're going to, say the things that you feel that needs to be said. So yeah, I do think it is worth having somebody come in. In the case that I just told you about in that anecdote, it was somebody who a board member knew. And so having that sense of ownership from that board member, that he brought in Jack, who was able to say all these things, man, he was 100% bought in once Jack had said those things, because he was the guy who brought him to the table. And so don't underestimate how important that is. And so if there is somebody in the community who has a connection to somebody on your board, that can make a big difference. Now, the other thing that I will say is, in terms of topics, you're a member of Spark. So one of the early master classes that I did and that you have access to, now it's supposed to be for you. I didn't really create this so that you could show it to the board, but there is a session on the board's role in philanthropy and the executive director's role in philanthropy. You could go and look at that session and mine a bunch of things and probably get a bunch of 5 to 8 minute topics that you could be doing throughout the course of your board meetings. And you're right, there are a lot of things to be talking about. So one of the things, now I could probably just riff on this for ages, but we can try to come up with some topics. But one of the things you might want to talk with them about is, you said it very nicely, that there's an expectation that they will make a donation within their means. Well, within their means is a very subjective language. And that could be one of the topics. What does it mean to make a donation within your means? And there's language in that masterclass that I use around, as a board member, and this is, this was hard learned because I made mistakes doing it in other ways. And the where I've landed is that, as a board member, we hope that you will contribute to home again. Sorry, I see that you've got it behind you and it just says home.
Oh, yeah, cut off my desk.
Yeah. That as a board member, you take your role seriously enough that you will make a donation with like top 3 to charities, to Home Again. And what that does is it allows people to have latitude, because there might be other causes that they are equally or more passionate about for personal reasons. But yeah, you're in the top 3 in terms of their giving. And that allows them to compare themselves to themselves and still have room for other charities that they care about. So that could be a topic.
That is great language to use, because as said, we do have some new people coming on. So these conversations will be just happening with these new people. So
now, one of the things I think is also worth talking about is who delivers these messages. So again, that notion of you cannot be a prophet in your own land is a little bit of it's a delicate balance, because to a certain degree, you want to make sure that you establish yourself, you establish your credibility with the board as the person who's responsible for raising funds for the organization. On the other side of that is the notion of peer-to-peer communication and how messages are received well when they are delivered by somebody who's considered a peer. And so that's a balancing act, and there's no right or wrong answer. But, you know, part of it might be that you don't necessarily, it doesn't become just the Maureen show, that that you have a board member who co-presents with you, or who introduces the notion and then you provide the details. But so that you're a bit of a tag team, so that board members don't feel like they're being lectured to by the staff, but that in fact they are engaged in a conversation with a peer. And I think how you deliver the messages can be as important as what the message is that is being delivered. And I look back on when I was in my 30s and doing this, and I wish somebody had been able to coach me about how to do that, because I think back on it, and I probably there were times that, because in some cases I was frustrated with my board because they weren't really giving that much, and that showed through. Yeah, the how you deliver the message can be just as important as the message that is delivered. So I think that's an important one for you to think about. I think having, again, both in Spark and in Planning with Purpose, I talk a lot about having allies on the board who are champions around fundraising. I'd be spending some time working with your ED around who that person or those people may be, and begin to develop and deepen that relationship, so that there is somebody on the board who really is seen by their peers as the person who really gets fundraising and who is in communication with you. And you want to set that person up as the person who is your go-to, but is also has the best interests of the board at heart also. So that, the board sees themselves, oftentimes boards see themselves as the body that is the, like the Senate in Canada, right? The somber second thought. And they want to make sure that they're asking you the questions to help guide program development, that sort of thing. And so you want to make sure that they feel confident that there is somebody who has had those conversations with you before you deliver a new idea to them. And it can be a delicate balance. But I think you need somebody who feels like can be, your champion. But I think the board also needs to have confidence in that person, that they are really that liaison between the board and
No, I think that's a really great idea.
And then that person can help you strategize how you deliver messages and what messages to deliver. Because the truth is, they're going to hear different conversations than you're going to hear from the board. And so they could potentially be a good source of ideas of different things that you could be talking about.
Excellent.
And then I think what you're going to find is that as you go along, topics are just going to bubble up really easily. So your event's going to be coming up and you're going to need board members to participate in it. Well, guess what the topic is as you begin to prepare for your upcoming event, right? It's what is the board member's role in the event. I talked earlier about having something in writing, like a job description or something. You might want to go one step further, and it could be sort of an addendum to the job description, or it could be a separate document around fundraising. But I think one of the things you want to do is let people know what the depth and breadth of fundraising looks like. Because if you don't know fundraising, you think of it as whatever you know it to be. So it's United Way, it's selling chocolate bars for your kids' school or sports teams, it's that direct mail letter that you get, it's that irritating telemarketer who calls you, like, and some of the perceptions of fundraising are negative. So providing a list of what fundraising looks like and how board members can be involved is an important piece of what you're going to need to do as you're working with this new board. Now, I have this whole thing with when I work with clients where I have what is called a reward involvement matrix. So it's 4 quadrants, and high reward and high involvement from board members. Like, that's where you want people to be involved, right?
Yeah.
And so that's typically things like major gift fundraising. That's really the big one. And events are usually very high involvement, perhaps lower on the reward.
Less rewarding.
Yeah. But using that kind of concept of a reward involvement matrix and putting your different fundraising activities in the quadrants allows board members to see where they can fit in. And it's not the end of the world if they're fitting in an area that is high involvement and the return on investment isn't that great, because you're still doing those things. You might need some involvement, but you really want to nudge people over to the high involvement piece, high reward piece, the high rate of return piece for their involvement.
Yeah, certainly. Like, I do try to break down, not so much in this formal contract thing, but kind of list off the many things that they could be involved with fundraising. And with any kind of new people, either on the board or financial development team, just kind of ease them into the role with, hey, do you want to make some thank you calls? Or
Perfect.
like, I've got this stack of cards and these donors, do you want to write them out and sign them? So like those sort of the feel good pieces, right? You ease your way in and see where that goes. But yeah, I do like the idea of kind of more formalizing the whole process and having it all listed down and with the quadrants in terms of maybe we'll start here, but our goal is to kind of gradually shift up to this corner. Yeah.
And I guess my last piece of advice, because I can't believe it, it's almost, I think maybe 20 minutes has already gone by. The last piece of advice is, don't get your knickers in a twist too much about having every board member involved in everything. So earlier in my career, I felt very strongly that everybody had to be doing something. I still feel strongly that everybody has to make a donation to the organization, and I think that should be cleared out, clearly laid out when they join. But beyond that, it takes a lot of time to manage 10 or 12 volunteers. And if all you have is 2 or 3 who are really deeply engaged and are really meaningfully helping you, man, you've got it made. So
that's good.
Yeah, part of it is just recognizing, like, how much effort are you going to put into trying to wrangle some volunteers who may not feel comfortable or who may not have the skills or the characteristics that are going to lend themselves to being really helpful. Yeah, can't bring blood from a stone.
No, totally. And you're right. I mean, if I had 2 or 3 fully engaged people or actively engaged, and then the others, we'll make our thank you calls, we'll come to the event, whatever. And if that's the extent of what they can do, that's great. They're still there as ambassadors and doing their piece. But yeah, it's finding those allies is the key, really, and figuring out a way to work really strategically with them. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cathy. This has been wonderful.
My pleasure.
20 minutes flies.
It really does. I can't believe it's already, it's probably 25 or 24, but let us know how it goes.
I will.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sparkles. If you have a question for Have a Chat, send it in. Love to talk with you and do this same sort of thing. All right. Bye-bye.